And we're going to get started now. I will pause from time to time. We have a lot to go over, so sometimes it's not time efficient to talk about detailed questions, but we can certainly answer some quick questions as well. We assume that you have already added some accounts to your environment. Perhaps you started to look at the rule sets, the resultant events that are associated with that environment. And certainly you can open up a ticket for sure with that environment that is specifically to those questions. So I just want to get one more person to make sure that you can hear me in this Zoom animal. Great. So from posture management to findings and dashboards, let's get started. Lots of, in the past, like I said, lots of use cases, lots of sort of focused areas, but we want to talk about posture management and how you can customize it and for your environment. Maybe for you relative to a particular department, it may be for your whole company, but our compliance rule sets are here to help you get started. For there are standard compliance rule sets that have been added automatically. And we'll talk about that. When you first added that account, you went over to your events console and you saw events there. You did not create those rule sets. They were included and began to run for you when you initially added those accounts. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Yes, we'll have a few slides to go through, but we're going to spend the majority of our time in CloudGuard Dome 9 for sure. So certainly, as we've said to many a customer, that all roads lead to compliance, but now we have to add the suffix. We have to add the extension that if all roads lead to compliance, an audit, if you will, you have to prove it. You have to make the auditors happy if you're subject to regular monthly, quarterly, or yearly audits, and have to show results in terms of trends that proves that your entity types, whether they've been in AWS, Azure, or GCP, make sense, are compliant, again, with your set of rules. So we know so far, hopefully, that a rule is part of a rule set. It can be scheduled in your continuous posture. That is, with a notification, it can be sent to you on an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly basis. We know that you can put the results in your inbox. That is, through email notifications, it can go to one email recipient or many email recipients. It can go in as a simple summary or a detailed CSV file and a few options in between. The assessment history allows you to review that. And maybe the most important place is the events console, where the failure, the ones that didn't measure up, those entities and objects to your rule set runs, are going to be listed there and obviously filterable through a variety of different ways under that heading of new and improved, and we'll spend some time on that. And then the last piece is the dashboard. You saw the dashboard when you first logged in. It is the first screen that you see when you log in. But we want to make sure we get the point across today that it's your dashboard that has your results for, again, not just maybe the person who logged in, but shared with other members within your department and company. So as I mentioned, how is there rule sets and events that you have not configured any of this yet? Because there are a standard set of rule sets, and they are part of something called dashboard. If you do a search on dashboard, you'll see these standard rule sets that are run every hour, can be reviewed just like your rule sets need to be. And this is the foundation or beginning of your configuration options. And they're all eventually, those results are eventually headed for the events console. And as a conclusion, to be configured as resultants in the dashboard. And there they are, the standard rule sets that are run auto-magically. That's not a word per se, but many people sort of don't see this when they onboard an account. We need some general data, some general results that go to your dashboard that are important to you. Some companies are focused in on just one cloud account. I call those people lucky, meaning you don't stretch yourself too thin, but nevertheless, lots of companies now begin to go to that multi-cloud strategy. So it is important for CloudGuard to have a standard rule set ready to run against AWS, Azure, and GCP, and be able to run that on that hourly basis and give you some basic trending, some events in your event console. And they all, as I mentioned, end up in the events console. And of course, filterable. This is relatively new. It hasn't been here forever, but the fact that you now have a way to sort both on columns and through our filtering options will help you get the results that you need to take action against any non-compliant entities and objects. So noted that events show up before you actually add it, and there they are. So enough about that. Let's start talking about the CloudGuard console as you see it initially. That is my dashboard that I begin to work on. But when you first log in, there is a default dashboard. There are defaults, plural, that you see relative to AWS, Azure, or GCP. Did you know you can make any of these your default dashboard? That is, when you log in, you have the ability to make these standard dashboards that should be seen in your portal, your console initially. You can make it the default dashboard, just like that. So every time you log in, it is important. And as we'll see, you can share that link with others and say, hey, make this, that is, fellow CloudGuard Dome 9 users, make this your default dashboard. As you probably know already, you can drill down in any of these widgets, if you will, and get right to the event console, get right to the security group view, and take a closer look at that to see exactly, in this case, that there's security groups issues that need to be reviewed. A click back should give you and always stick into that particular area, but we're focused in on the dashboard, the screen that you see when you first log in. And I submit to you, it may be the last screen you see just before you log out with that information. Now, these are, as it says, defaults, but you know, I hope you know that you can clone these dashboards as a rule set. You can clone them, as we say, and then you begin to own them. That is, you can modify, you can move the dashboard to different subsections, or literally drag and drop it to other places as well. So this gives you, you know, that look and feel. You could get rid of it and not really worry about it. You're not interested in intelligence and threat hunting yet, but that is an option that you may want to look at a little bit farther down your journey in terms of understanding your cloud environments. But here's one all focused in on posture management, a variety of different ways. That is, you can display that information as a gauge. That's a gauge, like a speedometer, if you will, or odometer. You can display that information for that organization, that OU and that dashboard as a sort of a trend change summary, or a line that shows you progress based on a time variable. Now, if you add more accounts, obviously you may have a more issues to review for sure, but we'll leave this alone, and he said, and just save out or just simply cancel out here. But again, hopefully you begin to understand, well, I've got something here that is not just for me, it's for others who might log into CloudGuard Dome 9 and want to see it. And I put in here your dashboard here, and that's what we'll sort of end with, the fact that you can show it as certainly as just one simple rule set or multiple rule sets. And as always, be able to drill down on this this one and find out what we're talking about, look at the results of that, and hopefully take action. But again, that is where you start, and someone may have already created it for you, and you're just taking advantage of that. That's so important. But where it all starts is if we do some basic review here, it starts with protected assets. You've added some accounts. You are interested in a specific platform, a specific asset type that may give you a reason to make sure that a rule set is being run against that particular object and confirming that it is compliant with your set of standards. Hopefully my screen just didn't go black on you like that. But again, we're recording this. We'll edit that out. But what this is doing is, in this sort of lead up to our posture management, is giving you an idea of the sheer volume of assets and objects that have been added to your environment that begin to allow you to filter on events and even the traffic associated with that. But again, this is just a beginning. This should be not new to you in the sense that you know where your assets are, you know the sheer volume of those assets, whether it's an account or multiple accounts is listed here. And from here to new users or slightly educated users, they begin to see exactly, again, the objects and entities that are associated with this particular platform. In this case, I just picked, AWS or a particular account or accounts, and we see it here. Now, you may pause here and export these filtered assets, and we have new detailed asset types. It actually sends an email to your inbox on this particular one and allows you to look at it in a much more detailed way. Again, sharing information for people who may not log in on a regular basis. But these reviews of these protected asset types brings most users to posture management and the ability to look at those rule sets and determine which are the right ones for me. Let's stay on that AWS theme, although we could certainly look at other platform types. And yes, Alibaba is new. We have new image assurance. We have Terraform options, Azure and Kubernetes. It used to be just AWS, Azure, and GCP. You see we're adding other platforms. Take a look at that when you get a chance. But for today's session, we want to look at, as I look at the list view, look at a particular type that is CloudGuard managed, which is a rule set that you have probably seen before, but it cannot be modified. You could exclude a rule or two from it, but it is rule sets that are being revised, as you see right here under CIS. If I do a search on that, is being revised on a regular basis. And that's most important to be aware of, because you can use these as your own standard and know when there are revisions coming up that you're going to receive the latest revised additional rule sets that are important to your environment. And you know probably that you can run this rule set. And again, someone has already created a rule set for you that allowed you to begin to see events before you did anything, as the slide presentation pointed out. And you saw some very generic listings here, and you were introduced to the GSL specification language, governance and specification language, which is not covered in this session, but rest assured we do have videos and special sessions dedicated to GSL modifications, runs, etc. But you could certainly even clone this standard rule set. Most do not, but you could certainly clone that. But well, I guess we'll do this for just this one session, just for illustration purposes, that if you liked the dashboard, which is very introductory, all the dashboard rule set runs, whether it be AWS, Azure, or GCP, is very introductory. It doesn't give you the details of many of our other rule sets. It's just, again, an introduction, but it did let you know that through this cloning process, that you do have the ability to change the severity level. You have the ability to modify this GSL singular rule set. Yep, you could change it to 1 as an example. You can now test that rule set against multiple accounts. That's fairly new. And make it your own. So it has a lot of options here as a beginning that you have probably run already, all based on the fact that it was provided to you through that dashboard service. But we see, as we saw earlier, as we look at this for more detailed, there are much more detailed rule set options that you can run continuously, review on a daily basis, and then look at it through the events console in a summary of multiple accounts and put those results in your own personal dashboard. That's where we're headed. So these are these standard rule sets. We know that there are many ways to filter on this for sure, and you can always just clear it out and start again. And this is always good to get an idea on this filtering option that you will see in a variety of different CloudGuard menus, and know that you can save that filter so others do not have to create this particular rule set at all. Keep that in mind. And you can save your specific one as your favorite, begin to modify it as I mentioned, and sort of back up if you need to do your own filter based on that. So just as a run here, you could run any of these manually. You probably have already, but we look at the the resultants, the assessment history of these. I was going to run one manually, but I thought, hey, let's take a look at the assessment history, because the assessment history shows you trends, allows you to give and get some meaningful feedback on these. Yes, this is a busy demo environment, so we do see a bit of a slowdown every once in a while, but this is the assessment history based on a very specific rule set that we can drill down on. Be very specific on a account, which is very important, I think. And again, you could save this filter as well and just look at a particular rule set, a particular account, and begin to draw conclusions about how compliant you are relative to this account. And I guess we did it from a particular date range as well. That's always an option for you. Keep it simple here. We can do 7 days, we can do 4, we can do 24 hours. This is a demo environment. There's been absolutely no change, but that's something that needs to be reviewed for sure. If this were a development environment, you certainly want to see that trend go up. And a trend is a indicator of what can be shown in the dashboard menu. But nevertheless, these are the steps that, as we pause here at the halfway point, these are the steps that you take that you want to illustrate to others about what audits are coming up, what are the most important rule sets based on the asset review that you've done under assets, protected assets. Manually began to run a rule set or two, then begin to run this over a period of days, weeks, months, whatever it takes, being able to really key in on these results and be able to take action or share both the good, what has passed, or in most cases, what has failed, based on a specific type. Security groups is always sort of easy to pick on here. Security groups that are open to SSH or the infamous RDP remote desktop from Microsoft on port 3389 is something that you want to expand upon. You want to review those specific entity types, and as covered in earlier webinars and in our documentation, based on whether those security groups are in read-only or full protection, you can take action against that security group by modifying that security group and limiting that security group, all from that assessment history, which is a rule set that had been scheduled and run on a regular basis. Ditto with RDP, you could do the same kind of thing. Again, if you're using security groups in full management mode. In read-only mode, then perhaps you just export that. You export it to a CSV or to a something easy to read for the people who don't log in on a regular basis. So certainly you begin to find through these assets and the posture management options by looking at those standard rule sets, cloning one or two, then being able to schedule that on a regular basis. Sometimes the way it's described here, you don't see all the options here, but this is an anchor menu for all our rule sets and configurations. Specifically configure notifications, which is now under settings. But again, that anchor menu in posture management helped you find exactly what your notifications were, and allows you to use an existing notification or create a new notification that sends it to individual or individuals on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, as mentioned. Yes, there are standard ones that you could already use, as this example shows. But again, those notifications creates those results that drops into your assessment history based on the review of your assets, the continuous rule sets that are being run, and then shown in here as resultants. All brings you to perhaps a conclusion, whether it's modifications of those rule sets, first and foremost, to look at the organizational unit options that might give you some history, but then give you the reasoning to now begin to create your own dashboard. That makes some sense to you. Now, I started creating this one. You do not have to be limited to any one. You could certainly share it with someone or just create a new one. Obviously, it's always good to clone a dashboard, just like a rule set. So you can take this information and make it your own. In the compliance, I said compliance fun. Yes, you can make any section that you want. This will update it. This right here, if you can see this in the URL window, is something that I can share with other members. And when it says public, I can't emphasize enough, this public means your CloudGuard Dome9 account only. It's not publicly available. Keep that in mind as well. But here we have that ability to create a new section, to simply duplicate this using that information. Kind of hard. I'm trying to get full screen here so all can see it here. This is not helpful. This is not my rule set. Looking for things like compliance here when I chose it initially, but it's a little hard to see. We see that compliance section here. Traffic activity is different, of course, but we're focusing on compliance, which gives us events, which again can be represented here in this dashboard. So remember, when you're choosing a compliance one, it's not evident sometime. You have to scroll down and select that. That happened to me a couple of times. So a compliance type, organizational units. Hopefully when you were originally onboarded, you were explained that that can be a group of AWS or Azure or GCP accounts for sure that allow you to select that information. And these are the many, many rule sets that are here that may be helpful to you. Yes, one and done is certainly helpful if that's where you want to get started. But as we saw, you can create multiple ones as well and display it differently. This is in one of our sample compliance dashboards. You can see we have created something that's a bit more involved, a bit more visual, but allows you, as I mentioned earlier, to drill down on this one, share it with others, drills right down into the assessment history. Yes, we could create one for events as well. There's no question about that. We saw it in this overview, in this one. I wish we could make we can make a shortcut. I should make this as a as just an extra tab right now so we can come back to it and see it. These are all compliance trend options for sure. Is there an events one as well? Yep, there certainly is. And you can include it in your own dashboard because compliance leads to assessment history. But if we see another one, we can call it simply events. Events are the results of those compliance runs, those scheduled runs. Somewhere it's down here, he said. And then I can add a widget, get rid of that acknowledgement, events, source type, alerts, the pie if you're hungry, column, aggregation, alert type. It can be quite detailed, and you can change the size as well if that's what you need. Adding a filter, so important. Just relative to an account for sure. Save it out. I have some events. The events now, when I drill down on this, will allow me to get to the events console. So what we see here is, if I go back to the overview here, these are visual shortcuts from your dashboard here. As we see, I'm keeping it simple. We have some more detailed ones here. These are visual shortcuts that allow you to drill right into that particular area of concern based on these creation types. And yes, for if we look at this compliance one, this was all relative to compliance, but it was easy to read because you may be subject to a particular audit and you want to basically have that information readily available. But there's one above it. It's all relative to alerts and events. And just for a description change here, alerts and events is the same. An event, depending on your observation, can just be informational or it can be truly alert. And these bring us into that event console. Specifically events. You may start in posture findings. That's where we'll start. But those visual shortcuts can be one that is specific, again, to your organization, your environment, everything relative to production, everything relative to a severity level. There's the severity level. And for those of you relatively new, these are newer options, critical and information. And we saw when we cloned a rule set, we can change the severity level for sure. I'm only concerned with high. And as always, I can save that filter for others who don't log in on a regular basis. And now from this dashboard, I've created alerts or events, visual shortcuts, those widgets. I've cloned compliance options, that is visual shortcuts that allow you to drill into the assessment history. Here, the alerts and events, same thing. I see now something very specific, and we have been able to modify this to make it a lot more specific to your needs relative to these sortable columns for sure. S3 bucket, what a surprise. Obviously, there's issues here about using SSL, about being secure. Those three dots I should point out here are little quick tips, but they don't show all your options. To really know your options within this events console is to be able to expand upon it. And yes, as always, you can export this to a CSV file, or that is all, or just these filter events that I've made so far. And I see some very interesting information about S3 buckets should be using SSL and a remediation step. These are all part of a rule set here. But if I hit these three dots here now, I can exclude that. I can simply acknowledge it. I have remediation steps covered in other sections. I can assign it to a specific person logged into this account. So the next time he logs in, he will see his events that need to be reviewed. That might be helpful. Yes, you can do this for multiple here. You can change the severity level for this particular one. It was high. It should be medium as well. And there is, change to medium right here. There is a new option. Comments, it's not new. Report bad alert. What would this be about? If you think this alert is not correct, you now have the option, brand new, within the week, to say it's false positive. Yes, that S3 bucket is encrypted. So I don't know why. I wish CloudGuard Dome 9's R&D department look into it, or it's the wrong severity level. Simply, it should be high. I just moved it to medium. A remediation issue. It should be remediated. Maybe the details of this title and remediation step is not correct. And always simply other. Maybe there's a typo in here as an example. This is a new feature, but this came from not just being able to filter this from the standard posture findings. It actually came from the dashboard. I found something that was presented to me, that was shared out to me through this dashboard, that allowed me to drill down on this particular set of alerts, this visual widget that allows me to drill down on this one. Some of these are just just visual pieces that may not have any findings. Therefore, you're not getting any real information from it. But the the populated active widgets, if you will, allow you to get into those particular areas. See, this one's, it's not the entire widget, it's a specific critical event that I want to take a look at. So you may find you hover your mouse, you don't have anything, you have to drill down into that particular area. I go right to this date, trend account by traffic account at 6/22. And maybe look at something from that perspective. Where these lists allow you to drill right into that account. So it's not a slight clarification. You want to make sure that is a clickable event to drill down on it rather than just a visual one. One, it has to be populated with data, but two, it has to be something that you can easily go to. I didn't talk about the asset view. We're talking about the results, meaning events and compliance results for this session. Posture management. This is what gives you that ability with respect to posture management, the one that we're focusing on today, gives you some fairly good detail. Posture management means assets. Result of rule sets on assets put into your assessment history, where the events or alerts comes from that dashboard that will, when you click on it, allow you to drill down into that specific event. And now having another option in terms of acknowledging it, assigning it to someone, changing the severity level, remediation, again, not covered in this particular session, but we do have specific cloud bot, something that can, given the rights, make a automatic change on that compliance issue. So we're back up at the dashboard. The last thing you could do for others who do not log in is the ability to export that dashboard. I didn't talk about that. It's just a simple PDF gathering a lot of information here that can be sent to others under export to PDF. May be helpful, but it may most importantly allow others to see progress, whether it is a simple, as in your dashboard here, a simple set of widgets that you may want to share with others, or something more complex, as we saw under this alert or event-driven dashboard. That will put you into the events console, completely configurable, completely exportable, and giving you additional ways to assign, to literally investigate based on these columns. So I'm going to pause here and conclude with any questions that you might have. I'll look for the certainly in the chat window if you have any questions relative to those simple visual dashboards that allow you to get started, to the posture management side, which allows you to use existing rule sets or your own cloned rule sets to review and create those visual cues, those visual shortcuts in your own dashboard that can be provided to others with a simple link, and make sure that you point out that you can create, that is, you can create your own And you have the ability to share it with others or not. I should point that out, that you don't need to make this shareable to others. You can just keep it for yourself, clone it, and share out a specific copy, Rev 1, Rev 2. So you always have a master dashboard, your dashboard, and then share it out a specific one that is your dashboard here. We like to pick on that one and make it public or not based on, again, your needs, your environment, your customers, that is specifically your internal ones listed under settings. Those users, that's what I'm talking about. Specifically, these users here when I make it public. Now, there have been requests to say, can I make dashboards open to very specific users? Meaning really define who can see what dashboards. That functionality doesn't exist yet. It is an active feature request being reviewed, but nevertheless, you have that ability as an administrator to create specific dashboards that are available just to you, or as mentioned, available publicly through this link here. So that concludes our review from compliance to dashboards and of course, reviewing those findings. So I'm going to stay on the line here just for a few more minutes. I want to thank you for hanging in there. There are other webinars, both active and recorded. If you don't have the time, with our recorded ones, we try to sort of bring it all together a little bit quicker here, but we do like when we have a large active audience, as we do today, to review these options in detail so you can truly pick it up and ask a question or two. But again, thanks for joining. If you have a question, let me know. If not, I'm sure we'll be talking again through a variety of other subjects that we offer through CloudGuard Dome 9. Thank you.